Doing this podcast for school has not only given me a lot of knowledge about producing a podcast and getting talent, but also how to interview them once I've gotten them. Hi, I'm Alfred Faber. I'm a second-year student in the BA of Screen Production, and I'm the writer and producer of the upcoming podcast Sound Perspective, where we explore how sound is used in visual medium. And the first episode is going to be a special on the sound in Mad Max Fury Road. So far, I've talked to people like George Miller, sound designer David White, and sound editor Wayne Pashley. So here are my top 3 tips for interviewing people for podcasts. Find the right people. So you've got to find out what the story is and who the people involved in that story were. For me, I wanted to explore the creation of the soundtrack of Mad Max Fury Road because I just loved the soundtrack of that movie. So I knew I had to speak to George Miller, but I also researched all the people who worked on the sound team, contacted them, talked to them about who they thought was integral to the story. I've tried to contact so many people for my podcast, and a lot of people have said no, and I've probably made a fool of myself, but the worst thing that can happen is that someone says no. You'll never get something if you don't ask for it. Do your research. I've heard that some people like to conduct interviews for podcasts having done no research because they want it to be conversational or whatever. I personally think that's really dumb because you're going to end up asking questions that this person has already been asked a million times. You've got this amazing guest, you've got them for a limited amount of time. Make the most of it by knowing what you're going to ask, knowing what to talk about, knowing what the slant of the story is going to be, and knowing how you want their interview to fit into your podcast and into the episode and the narrative for the episode in general. So for George Miller, I watched all his films, I watched all the interviews, I read a biography of him, and I wouldn't have been able to conduct the same quality interview if I hadn't have done that kind of research. Don't hog the mic. There are so many podcasts these days which is just a person decided to make a podcast about themselves, and maybe sometimes they'll get a guest. But I think you have to be really famous or really funny or really special to actually make that work or make people want to watch you. The likelihood is that if you've got good guests on your show, your audience has come for them. They haven't come to listen to you or your opinion. They don't care about you. They care about the people you've brought. So ask those people the right questions and just shut up and listen and put them in the spotlight. I hope you've enjoyed these tips. I want to thank everyone in the school who's helped me out with the podcast. If you want to have a listen, subscribe to our Facebook at Sound Perspective to find out when it's coming out, and make sure you subscribe to AFTRS YouTube channel.